Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a word you hear pretty much every single day, the economy. But we're going to look at it through a different lens, through anthropology, to uncover a much bigger and, honestly, a more human story.
So let's just start with that big, simple question. If I asked you right now, what is the economy? What pops into your head? For most of us, yeah? Our minds probably jump to things like these, right? Markets, money, profit. It's this familiar view, based on a way of thinking that sees all of us as rational individuals always trying to get the best deal for ourselves in a world where there's just not enough to go around. But is that really the whole story? What if that entire story, the one about everyone just maximizing their own personal gain, is just one cultural model? And for most of human history, it's not even close to how we've operated. To really see what I mean, we've got to solve a little puzzle.
Okay, so let's dive into this classic anthropological puzzle. It's a tale of two herders. We're heading to East Africa, to this semi-arid scrubland where two different groups of people live literally right next to each other, the northern Somalis and the Boron Gala. Now here is the puzzle. They're living in the same tough environment. They make their living herding the exact same kinds of animals. We're talking camels, sheep, goats. But their social lives? They could not be more different. The Somali are known for constant feuding and a really intense focus on family lineage, so they keep their families close. The Boron, on the other hand, are way more peaceful. They often split their families up to manage the herds better, and they don't put nearly as much emphasis on those strict family ties. So what's going on here? If they were both just rational individuals trying to get the most out of the same environment, wouldn't their societies look kind of similar? The standard economic model, it just doesn't really have a good answer for this. To figure it out, we need a totally new way of thinking. And this is exactly where economic anthropology comes in. It really challenges our most basic assumptions about what makes us tick. See, instead of just assuming there's this one universal economic man who acts the same everywhere, economic anthropology asks, how do different cultures define what's valuable? What's a rational choice? What's a good life? It gets into a debate about the very idea of a single human nature when it comes to how we get by. So to understand our herders, we have to look at motivation in a new way. The standard view, that first one, focuses on self-interest, the idea that we're all just trying to get what's best for ourselves. But anthropology says, hold on, there are at least two other huge drivers. There's the social motivation, where we act based on our identity as part of a group. And then there's the moral one, where our choices are guided by our culture's deepest values about the right way to live. So here's the kicker. We aren't just one of these things. Every single society is a unique blend of all three. The difference between the Somali and the Boron isn't about one being more rational than the other. It's about which of these motivations their culture dials up to organize their lives. This whole idea of a cultural blend becomes super clear when we look at one of the most basic economic activities there is, exchange. How do we get stuff from one person to another? Instead of seeing everything through the lens of the market, anthropologists like Karl Polanyi and Marshall Salins noticed three fundamental patterns for moving goods around that you see again and again all across history and around the world. First up, we have reciprocity. This is the oldest, most fundamental form of exchange. It's not about making a profit, it's all about building and strengthening social bonds. And it's not all the same either. You've got generalized reciprocity. Think about parents caring for their kids. There's no spreadsheet, no expectation of immediate payback. Then there's balanced reciprocity, like swapping birthday gifts with a friend. You expect something of similar value back. And then you've got negative reciprocity. That's when you try to get something for nothing, through haggling or even just outright theft. Okay, node number 2 is redistribution. This happens when goods flow into a central point. Could be a chief, a temple, a government, and then they're handed back out to the community. The most obvious example for us? Taxes. A perfect historical example comes from the Inca Empire. As you can see in this old drawing of a state warehouse, the empire collected all kinds of goods from across its vast territory. It then redistributed that wealth to pay for the army, build incredible roads, and make sure people were fed. It was a massive, highly organized system. But for a really mind-bending example, look at the potlatch. Among groups like the Nuka on the northwest coast, a chief would prove how powerful and high status he was, not by hoarding wealth, but by giving it all away in these enormous feasts. Your power literally came from your generosity. And finally, number 3, we have market exchange. This is the one we know best, right? It's driven by supply and demand, prices are set by money, but here is the key thing to remember. From an anthropological perspective, it is the new kid on the block. For most of human history, this was not the main way societies organized their economic lives.
So after all that, what's the big picture? Why does looking at the economy this way actually matter?
Well, it reminds us that economics isn't just about abstract numbers on a screen. It's about real people. This quote from a Costa Rican farmer's wife, it just perfectly captures that raw, lived experience of work and struggle and value that gets totally lost when we only talk about markets and profits.
The way a society makes a living is never a neutral thing. Whether it puts community bonds first, or the power of a central government, or the gains of the individual, its economic system is a direct reflection of its culture. It tells you what that society believes is important, how it defines success, and how it sees a person's place in the universe.
And that leaves us with a final, and I think, a really crucial question to think about. Our modern, market-driven economy. It's not some law of nature. It's a cultural invention, just like reciprocity and redistribution are. So what does the way we produce and exchange and consume today? What does it say about our values? What does it reveal about who we are?